Hello, it's nice to meet everyone here. How many of you know English pretty well? Okay, and do any of you also know French or Russian? Russian is. Okay, so you may ask me questions in either one. Russian is not my native language, so there will be mistakes, but we will understand each other. I think you have an introduction for me. Unfortunately, I do not know Georgian, except a few words. None of them bad yet. I haven't learned any of the bad words yet. As you see, I am at New Jersey City University. This university is located in New Jersey, but it is on the Hudson River. So it is right across from New York City, and literally right across from the towers that fell. So in our home, we had a smell when the Twin Towers fell, and we had to keep our windows closed for quite a long time. So it's very close to New York. It's a very, very diverse area. So when I teach graduate courses, aspirancum, usually I will have 5, 6, 7, or 8 different native languages in that class. First one is, of course, English and Spanish. Next, I could have Thai. I could have Vietnamese. I could have Arabic from Syria. I could have Arabic from Egypt. I could have Gujarati from India. I could have Telugu from India. I could have Chinese. So I have very diverse students who want to become teachers of English to children who are immigrants in our schools, or they want to become bilingual teachers. In the United States, bilingual teacher, it can be bilingual with any language, Russian, but normally it's bilingual with Spanish. Yes, that's the most common one. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we prepare teachers. I was really honored last night because I got a very good overview of how you are preparing teachers in the non-Georgian speaking areas of Georgia, in the areas where Azerbaijani is spoken, and the areas where Armenian is spoken. And so this was very, very interesting to me. Your problems are different from our problems, but I think we have a lot of common ground about what we are trying to do to help people get another language. Why did I want to come to Ilia University to speak with you? First, of course, to convey information to you, but also for very selfish reasons. I want to learn from you, so I hope we can have some discussion back and forth. This is not going to be a very formal presentation, because across countries, I think we have to share knowledge as educators of teachers, or as teachers who want to do a good job in our schools. I already said we face similar problems, and if we have to be creative to solve our problems, it is better if we are talking to each other. Do you know this expression, quick and dirty, in English? It means quick and not very pretty, okay? So it's brief. And this is a summary, but I have already told you a little bit about our program. Now I am telling you that the people who will be teaching English as a second language to immigrant children study together at the university with students who will be bilingual teachers. They receive different certification from the state of New Jersey. So they will receive a different piece of paper or online certification, but they work together. Most of their courses are the same, some are separate. After I talked to Eka, I understood that you want knowledge of things that can be done with children in schools, but also how teachers can get better, how teachers can be prepared, that is of interest to you. So I changed my presentation a little. I'm going to show you 2 courses that I teach online. and they're for all teachers, ESL and bilingual. And then I had planned to show you a third course that is only for bilingual teachers, but it's only on here. So what I will do is I will explain very briefly something about that course to you. Actually, the first two will be more interesting because our bilingual education course has a lot to do with the history in the United States of bilingual education. And what is our history? Does anyone know, by the way, what happened in the 1960s that political event that caused the United States to start bilingual education very seriously? Fidel Castro became the ruler of Cuba, and many people immigrated to the United States from Cuba. And the first immigration, there have been many immigrations from Cuba to the United States. The first one was highly educated people. And those people wanted their children to have Spanish. And this started bilingual education in Miami, Florida. Just before this happened, there was a ruling in our Supreme Court, our highest court, in around 1957. And that ruling said that if a child is sitting in a classroom and the teacher is speaking in another language, a language that the child cannot understand, that is discrimination against the child. That is isolation of the child because of the language. And the court ruled that this was illegal in the United States. So these two things together, Cuba and the Supreme Court, began our bilingual education. So the first course I will talk about today, has a very long title, obviously. And Eka has the textbook from this course, and she could show it to any of you who might be, maybe just pass it around and they can see what the textbook is for this course. This course does not talk so much about pedagogy, what you do in the classroom. But this course helps the teacher to understand better students who are different from the teacher. Okay, so people make fun of the United States for being so-called politically correct. I'm sure you've heard this term, politically correct. And they say that we are only giving jobs to people who have certain color of their skin and so on and so forth. Honestly, this is not really true. Unfortunately, in almost every country, including the United States, you have it is not about do I like you or do I like you because of your color or your language. That's personal relationships, right? But our institutions, including our schools, without even wanting to be that way, can be racist. Okay, so maybe the school is organized in a certain way so that parents who do not speak English cannot find a way to talk to the school. Okay, maybe nobody will translate for that parent. Maybe the parent doesn't feel like they can help their child in that school. So this is what we call institutionalized racism. It's not about somebody wanting to do something bad to someone else or hating someone else, but it's about a system that does not allow people to succeed and get ahead. And so this course is helping students to understand what may be problems in their schools. In our program, the teachers who are studying, they are already teaching. So they have the right to teach for 3 or 4 years until they have their certificate in hand. And so they are studying and they are teaching at the same time in the schools. And this helps them understand what is wrong in their school so that some children do not succeed. And it helps them to understand who is the other. Can you guess what I mean by that? Who is the other? What do you have any idea about that? What do I mean by that?
Captures different people?
Exactly. Somebody who's different than you are. Someone whose religion is different, who speaks a different language, or many other things. The other. And or how to go to the school and ask for something special for their child. Do they know how to use the systems of the United States to be successful and for their children to be successful? And many teachers are very sympathetic toward the children, but they just don't understand how complicated this is. So the second course, and I will go back and say more about these courses. The second course is called Applied Linguistics. This is a more purely linguistic course. It is teaching people how people learn language, okay? And I won't go through all the details of this, except that I am going to show you an assignment from this course. So you will see how teachers analyze different scenarios. So did the children come to the United States at age 17? Or did they come at age 7? This will change what happens when they start to learn language. So that is what we talk about in this course. And also, if a child comes with uneducated parents who are not literate, and the other child comes with educated parents who are literate. Even the parents don't know English, but maybe they know Arabic very well. They know Gujarati or Hindi very well. That makes a difference in how those children will move over to literacy in English. And the third course, which unfortunately I cannot show you online, is the bilingual education course. And there is a lot about politics in this course, because the teachers come in sometimes and they say, I don't care about politics. I'm not interested. I'm interested in the children in my classroom, making things different for them. But unfortunately, teachers have to know about politics because it affects what happens in their classroom. There are laws. There is money. How much money are they going to get for books? How much does the government decide it will invest in bilingual education? Did the laws change? Sometimes the politicians, 4 years ago, we had a man from Massachusetts who you might have heard about. His name was Mitt Romney. He didn't become president, he lost. He ran against Barack Obama and he lost. When he was the governor of Massachusetts, he abolished bilingual education in Massachusetts. We still have it in New Jersey. Going back to the first course, I'm going to talk about an assignment we do where the students have to interview an immigrant, usually an adult. And it has to be someone who is from a culture that is not their own. So if they are from a culture and a language that is not their own. So if the student is from Colombia and speaks Spanish, that student cannot interview somebody from Guatemala who speaks Spanish. They have to interview somebody from Egypt or somebody from Ukraine, for example. And they select a subject which has to be approved. There are very strict criteria for who they can work with. They have to design questions based on the research we are reading in the class. They have to conduct the interview, create a transcript. There is an online discussion forum where they talk about the interview experience. And then they do a real paper, a real formal analysis of the interview. Very funny things happen when I give this assignment. So I already explained to you that my own students are very multicultural. They come from all the different countries. And then when I give them this assignment, they say, "Oh, Dr. Farina, I can't do that assignment. I don't know anybody outside of my culture." So in the whole United States, and New Jersey is one of the 5 or 6 most multicultural states in our country, they don't know anybody. And I say, well, good, then you're going to meet somebody new. But there's a lot of resistance. People don't feel comfortable getting to know somebody who's different from who they are. But they do it, they realize there's no way out, and at the end, what they tell me is, I never realized. This was an amazing experience. I never knew this about this group of people. I couldn't imagine that about this group of people. So it really helps them to be a better teacher later on. And they usually tell me that they start working harder to make contact with the parents of their students because of this assignment. I'm also going to show you the rubric I use to grade the assignment. So when the students begin the assignment, they know exactly what I want and exactly how they're going to be graded. There are no surprises for them. They know exactly what they need to accomplish in this assignment. Here's what it does. And very important, my students can read the readings. They can recite practically by heart the readings. They are doing a very careful and thorough job, but they have no idea how what they read relates to what they will do when they go into the classroom. And this assignment helps them to accomplish that. They can make that linkage between the theoretical things that they are reading, and that's hard to do for everybody, and real life, real practical life. Before we have our discussion, I'm actually going to go online, I hope, and show you this. Okay, so this is my online course site. This is, at our university, we use something called Blackboard. And here's the course content, I hope. Yes. And as you can see, the students have everything they need right here on the course site to succeed, all the information they need. And here is the assignment, which is the interview assignment. It actually is 3 parts. They have to get approval for the subject, and they get a grade on that. They have to hand in the transcript, and then they have to do the formal interview analysis. So I will show you just a little bit. These are their instructions. And the instructions are based on many years of giving the assignment and knowing what an immigrant remembers. So immigrant people who do acculturate actually forget very quickly the bad experiences they had at the beginning. And not just bad experience, but challenges, what was difficult for them. So if they have been in the US for too long and someone interviews them, everything is great. Everything is wonderful. I have a great life, I have a good job, because they have slowly elevated themselves in the society and they don't remember all the struggles along the way. So we want them to be in the country not for too long. Here you see, I don't know if it's too small, let me try to make it bigger. So as I said, someone different from you, not from your culture. Someone who does not share your language. And it has to be somebody acculturated enough to speak English to you in the interview. Because since language is such a marker of acculturation, if a person has zero English and needs a translator for the interview, that person has not acculturated. So how can you study acculturation with such a person? You cannot. So they have to speak to you in English. It doesn't have to be great English, but they have to be able to communicate with you. So I won't go into this anymore, but this is what they hand in. They hand in information about their speaker. I approve the speaker. Based on this and based on their readings, they design questions, which they discuss in an online discussion forum. So if one student has a great question, the other students are allowed to use the same question in their own interview. So they share questions and they all are contributing through the research to what is a good interview question. They conduct the interview, there is a deadline for that, they hand in the transcript, and the reason for that is and it is not the whole transcript, it is a snapshot. And I can tell if they asked questions of enough depth, and if they really understood something just from looking at a piece of the transcript. And then I can tell them, go back, contact your subject again, find out this, find out that, find out this. You don't have enough information to write a really good analysis. So this is a way of me making sure my students succeed. Because remember, they do not have English as their first language very often. So I have to make sure I am giving them an assignment that allows them to also succeed. This is the final interview, and this they do individually. The discussion forum, where they first talk about their experience of the interview, they do with everyone. So now they've actually gotten training through the online discussion forum to help them write their essay, their analysis essay. This is very important. I want them to learn to be good editors, and if they write 3,000 words, it will not be as good as if they write 1,600 very good words. And I want them to learn how to edit themselves. So that's the reason for that. This scares them to death, and I like that. What progress has the immigrant made? And what remains difficult? That's part of what they have to write about in the analysis. How has the interview experience changed you And how will your teaching be different as a result of having done the interview? So that's another part of the interview. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you are doing here in Georgia that is relevant to this kind of assignment? Are there situations in Georgia where a person might be teaching that they would need to know about cultural backgrounds? Or anything you want to tell me. Do you have a suggestion how I could make this a better assignment? Some of you how many of you plan to be teachers or are already teachers? Anybody? Okay, you don't plan to be a teacher either? Yes, some of you might be a teacher in the future. Okay, so how could you use this, adapt it, and make it something different maybe for children? How could you do this with children?
I'm one of the school teachers here nearby. I have all grades, but mostly I'm interested in how you teach beginners there. For example, it's just 6, 7 years old teachers. So
the ESL teachers, how they would teach beginners.
So the textbooks that we have are very difficult to teach them because they start from the beginning reading and writing, and they yet don't know native language reading and writing. So we start from January, then it comes that all the slides are connected based on reading and writing, and so some non-coincide is different on usually. So I'm interested in how, for example, you teach their beginners.
Okay, I train the teachers, but I'm in the schools watching how the teachers are training the children, how they are teaching the children English. This particular course that you see here doesn't do... Yeah, it doesn't show the teachers so much what you were asking. The second course, the applied linguistics, we talk quite a lot about this. And one thing that you were saying, the books are very difficult with a lot of reading and writing. The applied linguistics course, almost the whole course is about oral language and using oral language before you use written language. And children some children will never be able to learn to read if they a text if they have not talked about it first. So we teach a lot of techniques for finding out what the children know from their own background. And then if your subject is the rainforest in South America, for example, you might find out who went to South America, what they know about plants, all kinds of things that the children already know. All verbal, no print, no text. And then as you introduce texts, you give them very small texts, and you don't make them read it alone. And this is very important. Text can be very intimidating, especially to people who do not have books in their homes. So you want to make text possible for them. And so what you do is you give one paragraph to 3 children, and they have to work together to read that paragraph. And the next 3 over here are reading a different paragraph. And the teacher is not standing where I am right now. The teacher is doing nothing, so to speak. The teacher is walking around and helping each group with their particular job. And then those children have to tell each other about what is in the text. So there is more oral work than written work. The balance, especially at the beginning, is oral. And this is very hard for teachers to move over, because we know that for higher education you must be literate, you must have good literacy skills. But if you're not allowed to use oral skills to slowly elevate your literacy, you may never make it. You may never make it. So I think we have to let go of our love of the written language for some period of time in order to allow the students to gain oral fluency in the language. And that's the second course that I'm going to show you.
I have a question.
Yes?
This might be a very basic and a very silly question, but
I doubt it.
it's just, this is not my background, but I'm just wondering, from this course, the students will write an interview, the results of the interview that they had with the immigrants. And what will be the ultimate goal for this course? What will the students need to? They will summarize their findings, but would that be connected to how to educate a non-native speaker of a certain?
Well, this is our entry course, so this is the first step. We feel that unless they can really understand who they are teaching, that it will be very hard to teach them.
So they're trying to connect historical and cultural, the difference in their background, how they could better teach English or?
Usually English. It could be that they are teaching both Spanish and English in a bilingual situation. But of course the goal, even in our bilingual education, we really have as a goal that everyone should be able to succeed in English as well. It's fine with us if they have their native language and that they know their native language, but we want them to know English so that they have as many opportunities as possible in the country.
I guess my question was the connection between the background, historical cultural difference, background, and what kind of findings helped to better educate those non-native speakers?
Well, I'm not sure this is going to be the right answer for you, but the textbook that's going around, if you take a look at it, there's been a lot of research on things that really happen in classrooms when teachers don't understand. For example, how many times does the teacher call on a boy or a girl? Okay. The answer might surprise you. How many times does the teacher call on a black girl or a white girl in the classroom? The teachers themselves are usually not aware of it, and certainly the teachers I have met don't want to treat children unfairly, not in any way. But the teachers themselves are very often shocked by the results of some of this research.
I find this very useful because, as for me, I'm teaching here a new culture for me, Georgian students, and then I don't want to offend, so this would be a very useful and very informative information. Yeah, thank you.
And it's also very interesting to learn about other cultures. So just because I have the job that I do have, I have learned a lot about all the cultures living around me in New Jersey. And it's an interesting knowledge set to have.
Yes,
And then when I meet someone at the hospital, because I have some test over there, and they say, I'm from Kerala in India. And I say, aha, I bet you are a Christian. And they say, how did you know that? And I have all this trivial, but not really trivial, knowledge in my head of the different cultures that makes me able to be with different people successfully, to have successful relations with the people around me.
They will develop to course 2, course 3.
Pardon me?
To the next course, course 2, and then course 3.
Well, this course usually people take in their first semester. The other courses, they could be a little out of order sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. Except the interview, do you guys do like cultural events, like immigrant events, and as well as American students doing events to include those two cultures and get cultures known to each other better?
We would be encouraging the teachers to do that, definitely. And sometimes some of the in-class work is that they create either a lesson plan or a unit that addresses elements of culture. So for example, New Jersey is now moving toward having Muslim holidays in our schools. Okay, we didn't before. We just had Christmas and other Christian holidays, and we're moving in that direction. So what does that mean? That maybe the teacher would do a lesson on Eid and would compare Eid to Christmas so that the children can learn about all different holidays, not just their own holidays. So that would be one of the things that I would be creating in-class assignments for the teachers to work on to do that.
Yeah, but as a recommendation, there was diversity counseling in my high school, and it was a really good thing because there were people from different cultures, obviously mixed up cultures, and all of them were planning like their cultural events from their own country or culture, and it was like celebrated together in the whole school. So it might be good as well to try that.
Yes, and we do a lot of that in New Jersey.
Yeah, because in schools it's like really busy environment, and teachers sometimes don't have the time to do that.
Well, but maybe the teachers need to do that and need to find the time to do that. Another thing I would caution, we have something that we warn about if we're looking at multicultural issues. It shouldn't be only about food, fads, and festivals, okay? So I'm not saying these things are not important. The food is very important, as are those special events, but we know that culture goes much deeper than that. So we would want to have different multicultural projects that would dig deeper into cultural issues in the schools. And we're doing some of that, but teachers need help. If you're a teacher and you never did this before, somebody has to help you create such lessons and such thematic units. And that's where we come in. We create an environment where they can work with other teachers in groups to think about some curriculum for their schools. Notice here that this is a written assignment, and a group creates the written assignment, and the assignment receives 1 grade per group. So people are contributing together to a written assignment. I think this is relevant to some of your schools, maybe not university level, but certainly the schools, because if you have people of different levels of ability in a language, but who have knowledge and just can't write what they know, an assignment like this in the cloud, where everyone can work on it together, is a way to help people pool their knowledge and demonstrate knowledge even when their language skills are not very good. I also have individual writing assignments in this class, but this particular assignment was always very, very hard for the students. It involved a lot of problem solving, and you will see why. I will show you some of the examples of the scenarios, the problems that they solved. And because they were so difficult to solve, it really needed more than one person to work on it. So they could all read the research, find the parts of the research that apply to the assignment, and put it all together. And this works much better if my goal is for all of them to know this material, okay? Maybe a weaker student will get a better grade, but maybe that student deserves a better grade because they had the knowledge. They just were not very good at writing it. Okay, so the idea is we want them to have this content. How do we go about giving them this content? Folder disappeared. Maybe this is it. Yes. Okay. So, I have to make that a lot bigger for you. Does anyone know how to make this bigger? hope you can see it with the yellow here. I purposely left the names up of the group. So you can see here that we had a student of Polish origin who had converted to Islam. So she was Polish but wearing hijab. We had a student from India, or possibly Pakistan. I think Chowdhury was Pakistani. And then 2 students of Latino background, of Spanish-speaking background. So I just left their names there so you could see how diverse the students are. So this was the scenario in this particular group. They had to look at 7-year-olds who were acquiring language and going through the American school system and draw some conclusions about how good they would be in the language by high school age. And they had to do this based on the research. So they cannot give their opinion, oh, I think they'll be like this. They had to read the articles we were reading and find the answers in the articles. And it's a very challenging assignment, but because they were together, they could do it. I don't know why this is happening here. For some reason, the page is not showing very well here. This scenario, which you may not be able to read because it's so small, is kind of the opposite of the one you just saw. In this one, the young people come very late to the country at age 17 with 0 English very often. And this is a big problem for us because they could not even go to high school. Legally, you only have to go to high school until 16. But if they stay in high school for 2 years, how much can we do for them? And what kind of a life are they going to have in the United States? What kind of a career? Some of them, if they are, for example, migrant farm workers who have picked vegetables in our country, then they may have no education at all, okay? So you can see here that these are big problems for our teachers to solve, and if they practice, they can solve the problems of their real students who they see in their real classrooms. I'm sorry this doesn't show up better for you. I would be happy to share some of this material. So you have my email from the beginning of the presentation, and I could send you some of these things that you're seeing if you're interested. There's the top, okay, now I can do this. Oops, that's really big, okay. Maybe a little too big. Okay, so this is not really a rubric, but it's kind of like a rubric. It's a checklist, so that the students who do the assignment know what I want and how they're going to be graded on it. Because I think that is a big problem when people come together who come from very different backgrounds and had very different education, they really do not know what the teacher wants. And so we have to teach the teachers how to help their students understand what a grade is and how a grade works. And the best way to teach them that is for me to do it myself in the classroom. And then when they go into their classrooms, they can be doing the same kind of thing. The content is, of course, the most important part. they get 80 points out of 100 for the content. And as you can see here, it's very specific about what they need to include when they analyze their scenario. Any questions? So I've already told you what are the different scenarios that the students are doing. I showed you the one from childhood to high school, the one in red. I also have some other ones that you can see here. I also showed you the one with the young adults who arrive at age 17 in the country and need to learn language. And then I have other ones. When we say in the United States world language, we mean another language that is not English. So if you're studying a world language, you might be studying Spanish, Chinese, Russian, French, and so on. And then if you're studying English, that would be ESL. English is a second language. Questions? Do you have courses here where you talk about how language is acquired and what the difficulties are of acquiring language at different ages because the brain is different? Yes, okay, short answer. Very short answer. Would anyone like to tell me a little more about what you're doing here? And in something similar to this, if you have a course that might be similar to this? Course 3. I've already told you a little about the history of bilingual education in the country, in our country. One thing we do is we have the teachers visit a good bilingual program. So we know who are the good teachers in the state, and the class will travel to watch a good bilingual program. Some of the best in the United States, especially in New Jersey, are what we call dual language or two-way. So what you have there is half the class are English native speakers, and the other half are native speakers of another language such as Spanish. And they work together all day, all the way through their education, and they are taught by people at certain times of day all in English, and at other times of day all in Spanish. So that's what dual language or two-way education is. Now I also mentioned earlier that even if teachers would prefer there was no politics in education, there is politics in education. So the big assignment at the end of the semester in this class is they pretend to be writing an editorial to a newspaper where they are rebutting someone else's editorial on bilingual education. And they are explaining to an audience that is not teachers, is not specialists, what bilingual education is and why it is effective. So this is the course that I'm not able to show you online here. But that is the major assignment in that class. I think we have very little time left. But I really would like to hear from you. I appreciated your remark about the things you need to be a good teacher.
I would like to invite you to my lessons if you have time.
Maybe I will come if I have time. We will talk. I am visiting a school while I am here in Georgia of students who are learning English, Georgian students who are learning English. I already observed about 7 teachers in the past 2 days. We will talk, yes. I'm willing to talk to you, yes. Anybody else who would like to ask me anything? It doesn't have to be related directly to the presentation.
So, in the States, so the bilingualism education, you said in Boston, Mitt Romney said that, but in New Jersey it's still. So is mostly all the states do allow bilingual education? No? What is the ratio or percentage?
I don't know. There are websites that keep track of that because the state laws are changing constantly, so states change their laws. But what is very interesting is that there is also what I would call backtracking. So a state may say, we don't want bilingual education, we can live without it. And then they find out the children are not achieving. And they have to backtrack. So they might not say, we have bilingual education, because they said they don't want that. But what they will do then is change the way English as a second language is taught so that it allows the teachers to speak more Spanish.
I just wondered because you're training the students to write up some editorial to support bilingual education. So I was thinking, what would be the current status of the support from the government, whether they support the bilingual education or not.
What they do is they put it in the umbrella under ESL. So the federal government puts it under English language acquisition, but that funding can sometimes support bilingual education depending on what is going on in a given state, what that state has as its laws.
Thank you.
For example, it's not my focus of expertise. I am not a professor in bilingual education, but I have one question about the grades you give during the teamwork in projects. There are people, students of different origin, different education, participate together because I have similar problem. I think it's a problem for me. I teach modern Georgian lexicology, and one part is we try to compile dictionaries, and I give students a task to compile dictionaries, and I have students of Azerbaijan and Azerbaijanian and Armenian origins, and generally they choose to compile dictionaries Armenian, Georgian, Armenian, etc. And I ask for an editor to be a Georgian student, and generally they don't try to communicate between each other, and at the level of grade, when they have to take grades, it's a problem to give grades for them because generally I see that they haven't done teamwork on this dictionary. Do you have similar problems, and how you solve them?
Well, the easy answer, and I do this, there can be group participation in the rubric. And also, I didn't have time to show you, but in the online course, there is a big section of instructions about responsibilities in group work. And so they know that part of the grade is going to be for their collaboration together. That's part of the assignment of the grade. Also, they have ways of communicating me if there is a serious problem in the group and one person or something is happening in the group and it is not going well for them, and I try to improve the situation. So there is no easy answer to this, but I believe it is worth doing because at the level, people like me, when I was educated, we never did anything in a group. We were always individuals. But most students are not like teachers, okay? They have different ways of learning, front of them who never experienced group work herself or himself, it's going to be very difficult for that person to try to do it with other people. So the way I look at it, we're all learning how to do this because we know that there's quite a bit of research on how children can succeed more, especially children at risk, can succeed more if they get to talk to each other instead of only talking to the teacher in the classroom. But it's not easy. Sometimes it's really hard. Any other questions?
Do you have, well, it's a little far from your content, but I'm still interested. Do you have any advice for translators?
Someone who is a translator.
Yeah.
And you have no interest in education or being a teacher. You just simply want to be a translator.
Yes.
Yeah. I assume that in Georgia, like in many countries, you have special programs for that.
Yeah.
Is that not true? So I don't know what advice I could give you except good luck in that. I would assume that, especially in a country like Georgia where people are coming who don't speak Georgian, that there would be a lot of need for people who have good skills as a translator.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.